What are the differences in leadership, communication, and coaching styles among male collegiate and professional basketball coaches? There are numerous styles and techniques that coaches possess. I want to discover those styles and different philosophies of coaches at the NBA and NCAA level and talk about the most effective coaching styles that I believe. In this video, I will compare the different coaching styles, coaching philosophies, and the role of the coach in the NCAA and NBA. So coaching styles. There's 3 different styles. The first being the command style. The command style is an aggressive communication approach. Aggressive communication involves manipulation, which those using this communication style attempt to make people do what they want, and by inducing maybe guilt or intimidation. So the command style of coaching, the coach is the primary decision maker. The coach assumes all responsibility and leaves no room for decision making by the student athlete, whose role is basically reduced by the coach's commands. This role comes from the basic understanding that coach's knowledge and experience is his job to give the athlete direction. The athlete's job is to just listen and follow those directions. So this is most notable among NCAA coaches, and I think the most prominent coach that used this style was Bobby Knight, the old Indiana University coach. The second style is the cooperative style, and the cooperative style is an assertive style of communication. So assertive communication involves working hard to create the best situation for both the coach and the player. People using this communication style are often able to communicate their needs clearly and directly. The focus and emphasis are to strive for a win-win situation. And this style values relationships, which I will talk about later as the role of the coach. So the cooperative style is often seen as a collaboration between coach and player. It involves the coach and player working together to make the important decisions. But with that being said, the coach is the end-all decision, but he much values the input of his players or assistant coaches, so on. So this coaching style is used, often referred to as the coaches being teachers, because they realize that the only way for the athlete to grow, both as a person and as a basketball player, is if they can learn to make their own decisions and grow from their mistakes. So I found that the 2 notable coaches using this style are Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K from Duke, and Phil Jackson, Bulls, Lakers coach, just an NBA coach. So they both value mutual respect between the players and coach, and they want to be talked to in the same way. Phil Jackson was the kind of coach that rarely called a timeout and let his players kind of get into the flow of the game. Nowadays, you see coaches calling timeouts a minute into a game if they're down 5-0. So the thing about Phil Jackson is he allowed his players to get into the flow of the game and make their own decisions. And then the last coaching style is the submissive style, which the submissive style is a passive communication approach. Passive communication is about compliance and hopes to avoid confrontation. This kind of communicator does little and doesn't normally question anyone. They kind of just don't want to, mix things up because they think, that could not benefit the team if the vibes and mood is suddenly off. They believe it is better to sit down and bite your tongue rather than just causing an issue. So the submissive style allows others to more guide the conversation. People using this style of communication express their viewpoints and tend to move towards agreement just to make everyone happy. It is kind of uncertainty distance. The person I found using this was an NBA coach, Steve Kerr, who is actually smashing a clipboard right now. Obviously, Steve Kerr right now is probably more of the command style, but every coach has their outbreak here and there. But after watching the Warriors so much, I do think Steve Kerr embodies the submissive style. I think that could also be just because of the success of his team, which he has now gravitated towards a submissive style because he has such great players and they don't make a whole lot of mistakes. So the next thing I want to talk about is coaching philosophies. 3 coaches I want to touch on is Mike Krzyzewski of Duke, Phil Jackson, coach for multiple NBA teams and won like 11 championships as a player and as a coach, and then Bobby Knight. So Coach K, he thinks the kids are bigger than themselves on the court and off the court. So he has a famous quote. I love this quote is, excuse me, 2 are better than 1 if 1 act as 2. So, and he does give an example that in this quote, he thinks that 2 of his student athletes are out at a party, and there's drugs, and, one's maybe on the fence about doing these drugs, but the other is, embodying the culture of the team and the philosophy of the team and saying, no, we can't do this. Which then hopefully the player would come to his senses, which would be these 2 are acting as one. Because if one's doing one thing and one's doing the other, then they're not acting as one. So I think that's very important. In Coach K's philosophy of coaching, he'll curse you out, but he doesn't curse you out in a screaming manner or talk down to you. And he values teaching the game so much and the player evolving as a person too. The next coaching philosophy I'll talk about is Phil Jackson. He thinks cooperation leads to success, which he implemented the triangle offense because the triangle offense isn't built just around one player. It's built around the team. A lot of times you see teams' offensive philosophies are just centered around the best player and all plays are drawn up for this, but a triangle offense is not the case. He taught his players to think of themselves as part of the greater whole, but also allow them to be individuals at the same time. So the next coach is Bobby Knight. So Bobby Knight thinks that aggressive motivation for his players is the best outcome. And in one of our readings, Butterworth states that criticism is about description and understanding. Yes, but it is also about making plain issues of ideology and power embedded in discourse and in turn making ourselves accountable for our own actions. So I found this quote kind of relatable to Bobby Knight. He holds his players accountable, so when they mess up, they're gonna hear it from him. They're gonna get basketballs thrown at them. They're gonna get every name in the book called at them. But he wants his players to know that it's all love still coming from him. Being alert to the possible negatives in any situation is the best way to bring about positive results, is what Bobby Knight believes. So lastly, I want to talk about the role of the coach. So the role of the coach. Coaches obviously have many roles. The first main important role I would say is put a team in the position to function effective and win. So I think winning is everything for a coach. So coaches value relationships, I'd say, but they value relationships in different ways. So I think an example of this is Mike Krzyzewski. Mike Krzyzewski loves every single kid that comes through his door and enters his program. And I think two guys that he has a lot of love for are Nolan Smith and John Shire, who played for him and are now on his coaching staff. Next is planning. So coaches are responsible for game plans, are responsible for film sessions, scouting reports, and days before games, putting the team in the best position to win. So at practice, they'll have scouting on what the other team's going to do and the other team's not going to do. So planning is a big part of effective coaching and putting that team in success.